Have you ever encountered anything like this before? Chances are your answer is no. It looks strange, almost like something straight out of a treasure hunt movie. But this is real. The Ethiopian Bible is one of the most mysterious and debated books in existence. Even Ethiopia itself is a land wrapped in unexplainable mysteries, but that's a story for another time. As one of the world's oldest civilizations, Ethiopia holds a unique place in history. It stands as the only African nation that was never colonized, allowing its people to trace their ancestry back to Ham, one of Noah's sons. This lineage has even been acknowledged by Jewish traditions. However, this discussion isn't about the country itself, but rather about what it possesses. Ethiopia is home to some of the oldest biblical scrolls ever discovered, predating the well-known King James Bible. Unlike the 66 books found in the KJV, the Ethiopian Bible contains 88 books, including scriptures that are absent from other Christian traditions. These scrolls include writings from both the Old and New Testaments, as well as texts that had never been seen before. What makes this particularly intriguing is that Ethiopia possessed these sacred writings long before Christianity was introduced to them in the 4th century. Unlike many other nations, Christianity was not imposed upon Ethiopia. It had already taken root there centuries earlier. Since the 4th century, Ethiopia has been a predominantly Christian nation. The Egyptian traveler, monk, and historian Cosmas Indicopleustes wrote about Ethiopia's Christian heritage after visiting in the 6th century. He described how Ethiopian rulers welcomed Christian refugees who were fleeing persecution from hostile kingdoms and empires. Some Ethiopian tribes have been worshipping the Christian God for over 3,500 years. Contrary to what many believe, the oldest organized Christian institution is not the Roman Catholic Church. It is actually the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, known locally as Tewahedo. Ethiopia is also home to one of the earliest illustrated Christian manuscripts ever discovered, a collection of Gospels written in Ge'ez, an ancient Ethiopian language. This rare manuscript was found in 2010 in a remote monastery atop a mountain in Ethiopia. According to the Kebra Nagast, one of Ethiopia's holiest books, the biblical Queen of Sheba traveled to Jerusalem in the 10th century BC to seek the wisdom of King Solomon. This event is even recorded in the traditional biblical canon. But what it does not mention is that Solomon and Sheba had a son named Menelik. Queen Sheba took Menelik back to Ethiopia, where he became the country's first emperor. In 2012, genetic research revealed evidence suggesting that people of Egyptian, Israeli, or Syrian descent may have mixed with the Ethiopian population around 3,000 years ago, lending further credibility to this story. Despite its historical and theological significance, the Ethiopian Bible remains largely unrecognized and excluded from the widely accepted biblical canon. In fact, even many devout Christians are unaware of its existence. This raises a crucial question: why has the Ethiopian Bible been ignored or even suppressed? To answer that, we need to take a brief look at the history of the Bible itself. The Bible as we know it today has not always existed in its current form. Throughout history, there have been many versions, translations, and interpretations of biblical texts. Originally, the scriptures were written in Hebrew before being translated into other languages. The first major translation was completed by St. Jerome, who translated the Hebrew texts into Latin, creating what became known as the Vulgate around the year 400 AD. This translation included 39 books in the Old Testament and 27 books in the New Testament, which at that time was referred to as the Hebrew Bible. In the early centuries of Christianity, numerous books were written about the life and teachings of Jesus. However, many of these writings were not authentic. They were essentially ancient versions of fan fiction. Because people had no way to fact-check these texts, many began to believe false accounts about Jesus. This became a significant issue for early Christian leaders, prompting them to convene the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD and the First Council of Constantinople in 381 AD. During these meetings, they decided which books would be considered official scripture. To be included in the New Testament, a book had to be written by an apostle or someone who had directly witnessed Jesus' teachings. It also had to be consistent with the rest of Scripture. Over time, several books were excluded, shaping the Bible into the version we recognize today. One of the most significant changes to the Bible occurred under King James I. Despite the Vulgate being in use for over 1,000 years, numerous Bible translations existed by the early 1600s, causing religious disputes. Seeking a unifying version, King James commissioned 47 scholars to create an authoritative translation. These experts worked in separate groups for 7 years, following strict guidelines to ensure accuracy and eliminate bias. The result was the King James Bible, published in 1611. Because of the printing press, this version became one of the most widely distributed Bibles in history. However, the decisions made during this process resulted in the exclusion of numerous texts that are still preserved in the Ethiopian Bible. So why was the Ethiopian Bible rejected? The primary reason lies in its inclusion of books classified as pseudepigrapha. These are texts attributed to biblical figures, but were not actually written by them. Many Christian traditions consider these writings to be inauthentic or even misleading. Early theologians removed these books from the official canon, believing that they were not divinely inspired. This decision was made to prevent false teachings from gaining traction. Imagine if centuries from now someone published a book claiming that Kobe Bryant was a terrible athlete. While modern readers would recognize this as false, future generations without context might believe it to be true. Similarly, early church leaders sought to eliminate misleading texts before they could shape future Christian beliefs. Even within Ethiopia, there are 2 versions of the Ethiopian Bible, the broader canon and the narrow canon. A canon, by definition, is a set of accepted rules or principles. The broader Ethiopian canon contains 81 books, including texts like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, and additional writings attributed to biblical figures. The narrow canon, however, was established under Emperor Haile Selassie and consists of 72 books. While the broader canon includes everything in the narrow canon and more, it has not been widely reprinted since the early 20th century, adding to its obscurity. The rejection of the Ethiopian Bible is also influenced by theological and historical differences. Christianity in Ethiopia developed independently of the European Church, resulting in unique traditions and interpretations. Additionally, the Ethiopian Bible was written in Ge'ez, a language unfamiliar to most scholars outside Ethiopia. The lack of translations has made it difficult for people around the world to access its contents. Perhaps the most controversial reason for its exclusion is politics. During the early days of Christianity, the Roman Empire prioritized political control over spiritual growth. Many texts that did not align with their preferred narrative were discarded. Historical records suggest that bishops ordered certain scrolls to be destroyed, though some priests secretly hid these texts in caves near the Dead Sea. Some of these scrolls were rediscovered in the 1940s, shedding new light on biblical history. In recent years, interest in the Ethiopian Bible has grown. Scholars and theologians are increasingly studying its contents, and efforts have been made to translate it into more languages. Despite enduring attacks from foreign invaders, fires that destroyed churches, and attempts to suppress its teachings, the Ethiopian Bible has survived, adding to its enduring mystery. Now I want to hear your opinion. Had you ever heard of the Ethiopian Bible before? Do you think it should be more widely recognized? Leave your comment below and share this video with someone who might also find this topic interesting. And if you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. See you in the next one.